your host, Shane Johnson. And with us this morning, first time guest, Curt Macysyn. Curt is the president of Enterprise Public Affairs. Thank you, Curt, for joining the Morning Route podcast this morning.
Great to be on, Shane. A little bit of a role reversal for me, but
It,
I welcome the challenge.
it is. We're gonna have fun with this. Yeah, you're on the other side of the mic here
I
today.
am.
So yeah, we'll see how this goes, and we'll tally up the score at the end, right?
Okay, sounds good.
So, Curt, why don't we start with this? I know a lot of folks do know you that'll be listening here today, but there'll be some first time folks that are hearing you and seeing you here today. But let's start with your background, hobbies. I always like to get to know somebody before we move into what you do. 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. But tell us a little bit about Curt.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I started as an old legislative staffer, so I worked for the Speaker of the New Jersey General Assembly back in the day, and that really, I think, gave me an incredible background into the nuances of government relations. And it's a thing where at a point in time you choose whether you want to kind of stay in the political slash governmental role, or you transition into something else. Usually in the transition chain, it's you either go to institutional or corporate lobbying, so you're lobbying for an entity, a company, or you can go to the nonprofit association, trade association route as well. So obviously I took that path, and started out in governmental relations roles in various areas. I did have a great position, back in the 90s with the National Federation of Independent Business, which is a great lobbying group. And I was state director, in New Jersey there for
Okay.
6 years. And it was really nice. I mean, my father was an independent insurance agent, and I've always had kind of small business in my blood. And representing, that sector of the economy is always something that gave me a lot of energy,
Yeah.
a lot of enthusiasm. And we made some great strides. But I'm going to date myself a little bit. One of the things that we did, I said I'm going to date myself, is we removed the sales tax imposition on yellow page ads. So if you remember back in the day,
Ooh.
those yellow page ads, they were
Right.
pretty costly, but that was how a lot of small businesses, there really wasn't. I mean, this was in the 90s, so
Yeah.
the internet or World Wide Web was in its infancy, but
Yeah.
people were still using those phone books, and God knows my mother used those phone books until she passed, but
Yeah.
that was the like a primary source of communication for small business. So the state was, if you purchased an a yellow page ad from uh, the Bell
Right.
Atlantic or New Jersey Bell or wherever you were buying it from, imposed a 6% sales tax on that. So we removed that under the Christie Whitman administration. It was like, and that was a big deal back in those days. Now
Right.
I'm sure
Right.
that's still on the books. I'm not so sure how widely utilized it is, but it was definitely something that I kind of enjoyed doing. We got deductions for people aren't real familiar with tax code. It's not really a glitzy subject to talk about, but we did some, uh, I think, transformative things with deductions on the state income tax for healthcare, providing healthcare, depending on how the corporation. So that stuff was always set up for C corporations, really large corporations,
Right.
obviously, are taking those deductions, but it
Mhm.
wasn't the same playing field for small businesses. So we kind of, I think in my tenure there, leveled out a
Very
lot of
nice.
those things, and it was really, enjoyable to do. So then, eventually I um, transitioned into becoming, more of an executive director role, which means, in addition to the GR, which I still like and enjoy, and I think I'm fairly good at it.
Mhm.
There's other roles, whether it's finance, whether it's human resources, It's really keeping the trains running on time,
Right.
with the organization. So
Right.
it's been, quite a journey. I think about it like, coming on this podcast, sometimes we don't think about, the journey and take time to look at all the people. But I've been fortunate in my career, Shane, to have a lot of great teammates. I have a vision and philosophy, but I can only execute it with, people who work with me and for me and
Yeah.
members of the organization. So I,
Right.
I consider myself pretty fortunate, in that regard to have
Right.
a, fairly successful career, but a lot of great, partnerships along the way. And then one other thing I just want to mention in terms, you said, I'm not even sure it's a hobby, but I am a certified high school umpire for
Yeah.
baseball, and it's something I still do. Secretary treasurer of our local Delaware Valley Umpires Association chapter, and I exclusively do the high school games now,
Okay.
because I'm really busy, so I can't really engage in too many Little League or Babe Ruth
Right.
games anymore. But that's been quite a ride too. Enjoy it, still do it to this day. And nothing better than a good 2-1 high school baseball game with
Right.
not a lot of walks and very few errors.
There you go. Yeah, a lot of action, lot of plays to call everything else. So how are the parents today? Is it because it's probably not the ball players themselves. It's usually a parent or two, or is that getting any better? With
You
parents
know, uh, it
heckling the ump.
it yeah, I that was one of the reasons I stopped doing the
Mm,
recreational games. It was because the parents were largely unfettered at that
mm,
level. So there was not going to be any restrictions. In a lot of cases, and I'll be brutally honest here, Shane, is
mm.
is some of these leagues that um, support youth baseball just pay lip service on the whole idea of sportsmanship
Yeah.
and having inappropriate engagement, whether it's with the other team, whether it's with coaches or
Mm,
umpires. Because
right.
we're not exclusive in that realm. People are inappropriate. They can be inappropriate to a number of different
Right.
individuals. At the high school level, I think it starts to become more of an issue because um, there are going to be consequences, and it might not be that the school sanctions them or whatever, but if players are looking to go to the next level and play in college, there is
Mm,
nothing that a head coach at a college level wants in terms of an overzealous parent. And
okay.
so I think that thankfully tamps it down somewhat. You see a couple, three things, people get upset with the call, but fortunately for me, I let it roll off my back. The one thing I would say is, with a two-man umpiring crew in high school, you got a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah.
And people have to understand that we're not like the four-man crew. And I've done four-man games, and it's like,
Okay.
wow, this is a breeze because I'm covering, essentially one base. I mean, there are
Right.
rotations you have to do, but it is interesting, when you get to a four-man crew, you're just covering a more confined area where
Right.
we're out there, and somebody will question the call like, can he give you help? And I'm like, well, I have different responsibilities. There's only two sets of eyes on this. So if I'm
Right.
watching the same thing my partner's watching, then we're not covering something
Someone's
else.
gonna miss something, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I'd love to help you out there, but
Right.
it's not always feasible. But I'm still having a good time with it, and
Good.
as long as I do, I'll keep doing what I do.
No, appreciate that. Baseball, one of my first loves. I love baseball. Love sitting. I love to go to a game. It's got to be outside. I don't like sitting in a dome. But going outside, chewing on some sunflower seeds, just watching a ball game, nothing more relaxing. I absolutely love baseball. So yeah. So we'll kind of transition here a little bit. Let's go into kind of probably the meat of a lot of things that we're going to talk about here this morning. But being the president of Enterprise Public Affairs, one of your main roles that you do have is you are the executive director of the National School Transportation Association. So, if you could describe your role, what does it mean to be the executive director? What is the NSTA? So, if you could walk our listeners through that.
Sure, absolutely. National School Transportation Association was founded in 1964, so we just went through our 60th anniversary in Nashville, Tennessee, last year, and it's something that I think is often overlooked how visionary these individuals were in 1964 to say, we're going to take a group of competitors and we're going to band them together because there are areas where there are strength in numbers. And I think that at that point in time, and obviously we can see it today, but at that point in time is, something I consider very visionary. And so we do a number of things. Proud of the live conferences we have. I just saw you in Maui, Hawaii a few months back. We were in Nashville, Tennessee last summer. We're going to Boston this summer. We'll be in Fort Lauderdale. It's not only great places that we're going, it's getting everybody there together, the content we have. And really one of the things that we've been trying to do lately is embrace the local area where we are having the conference. So we had a great speaker, guitarist, songwriter
Yeah.
in Hawaii. Steve Grimes was fantastic summer. Um, uh, Guitarist about actually making the guitars because I'm a curious person to begin with, and it's like I never thought about all the pieces that go together to make that guitar and the wood and how long it really takes. And Steve walked us through that. Has done a song. Is a Lahaina resident. So when they had the terrible wildfires out there, he wrote a song, performed. Has a really humble guy because some people he's made guitars for and ukuleles are
Yeah.
notable names like George
Yeah.
Benson and Paul Simon. So
Mhm.
these people are coming to him, uh, to make
To
their,
make these.
and I know how artists are particular, so I'm sure he does
Right.
great work there. But it's something that we're going to continue to do is kind of immerse ourselves into the area, city, region that we visit and kind of embrace that and give
Yeah.
people a flavor of the area that they're visiting, and then
Right.
also for us to have great partners for content. A lot of the programs coming up, as I see it, it's always good as a business to have options. So one of the things that we look at are alternative fuel options for contractors. Another thing that is really on the front burner lately, and it seems like every podcast I'm doing lately, people are talking about artificial intelligence or AI
Mm.
and how that is really impacting the landscape these
Right.
days. So I've been executive director of NSTA since 2019, and I've been managing the NSTA contract under Enterprise Public Affairs since 2023. It's been a great run. I've represented a lot of similar interests, and once again, having a private business representation to me is, very important because,
Right.
I've walked in those shoes and I understand,
Right.
the issues that go on. And it, this is a statement that goes back into the 90s, so I'm going to date myself again, but there is something to be said, and I think we used to use this at NFIB a lot about signing the front of a paycheck rather
Mhm.
than just signing the back of a
Right.
paycheck.
Right.
And to me, that resonates. And
Yeah.
so it's been a great opportunity. I've enjoyed every minute of it. Like I said, have had great officers, had great board
Mm.
members. You're one of them. Done a lot of stuff on the Hill. You see traction,
Mhm.
at the Capitol Hill busing. So it's kind of one of those things where I look back and I say, my God, I'm going into my sixth year here, but it seems like yesterday when I,
Yeah.
started the position. So it's been a
Yeah.
great run.
No, that's awesome. No, thanks for walking us through all of that. Yeah, full disclosure, I probably should say, myself, company I work for, Palmer Bus Service, we are a member of NSTA. I serve on the board of directors of the NSTA. I'm privileged to do that. And I'll say from my perspective, when we joined, it's always, for a lot of people, right? It's I don't want to say scary, but it's an unknown, right? You join this organization and you go in, and here's a lot of these really big contractors throughout the nation, North America, because we had contractors from Canada as well, throughout the United States. But I can say, and I still remember the first one that I attended, I felt really, really welcomed. I didn't, that feeling kind of went away probably within really the first day. People came up to me and they were introducing themselves, and they were just as curious, like who I was and what company I was with. And not not to not remember anybody, but the one person that really resonated with me, that like, wow, I didn't know this person, but was Dan Cobison. Dan introduced himself. He wanted to know about Shane. He wanted to know about Homer Bus Service, and that's really NSTA. That's probably my sell to others, like why NSTA, and we'll get into some of that here in a few minutes. But it like in your position, it's hurting the kiddies a little bit, and you're right in that element of how it started and all this of competitors. But I can honestly say I don't ever feel competition. What I get from NSTA is people doing the same thing. What can we all do together to keep pushing our industry forward, right? To continue to make it safe, to continue to work together. I can honestly say I've never felt a competition. And I know where it came from. I don't say that wasn't correct in the beginnings, but neither of us were there. But there was that. But to me, it's really a team of like what we just did going to DC. And again, we'll get into that, but going up there and advocating for our industry. And I think it's a top notch program, or excuse me, entity. Your leadership is absolutely needed. Like I said, it's herding the kitten, keeping everybody together. Hey, what do we need to do? What do we need to do next conference? What do we need to do next year? Again, to push our industry forward. So yeah, a lot of great things with NSTA.
Yeah, and I think you kind of nailed it, Shane, because sometimes everybody has great intentions, and sometimes it's to protect people from the fact that you have your business to run, and then we have NSPA, and so we don't get too overzealous about what we're going to attempt as an association that would, you know, let's be honest, just be a tremendous time suck in terms of taking away precious moments from your operation. So
Mhm.
I think it's great. I think we kind of hit that sweet spot where people are fully engaged, able to give time, but then it's not been a burden to them, professionally in their 9 to 5 job.
Yeah, yeah. No, I totally agree with that. One thing too that I do want to hit on, and I know it's just as important to you as it is us contractors, but another part of NSTA that is very, very important, and I don't want to overlook that here, is our vendors and our OEMs are also part of NSTA. And so maybe Kurt, just take a minute to explain how important our vendors and our OEMs are to us at our level.
Yeah, I mean, we have great bus manufacturer partners, have so for a long time. They sponsor a lot of our activities at the live meetings. So, yeah, definitely want to give a shout out to IC Bus or International now,
Mhm.
Bluebird, and of course, Thomas Built Buses. We also have Ride. We visited their manufacturing facility last year, so they've been a great partner. And then on the vendor partner side, my God, we have so many really dedicated student transportation professionals over there that are just so helpful to what we're doing. I was just on a safety competition call yesterday, and we have folks from First Flight Safety, we have folks from Safe Fleet, on there, RWR Insurance helping us out with the safety competition because you know what, like the rest of us, they bleed yellow too.
Yeah.
So it's really a great partnership. We have about 45 or so vendor partners, and each of them bring a unique perspective. I'll tell you one quick story.
Mhm.
So, uh, Bike Curve was recently acquired by Transit Technologies, and I had Jerry Leonard on the Bus Stop podcast, and we were just talking, about a lot of things. And I really asked him, like, what was the attraction for you? Because obviously, with the name, they were more focused on transit than they were actually in the school bus realm. And I said, what gave you the impetus to kind of acquire that company. And it's an interesting podcast. It was very forthright in a lot of cases. And he said that he was just so um, appreciative of the culture of student transportation, how everybody is rowing in the same direction in terms of making sure that we're providing safe, efficient, and secure transportation for students. And that it was important to him with GP Singh over at Bike Curve that they had a really high level culture that he established. And so I think that is the one thing that is often kind of understood, but we don't highlight it enough is the high level culture that all of our NSTA members have is that they develop within their own companies these opportunities and cultures that have really moved student transportation forward. So I think it's a good listen, but I think it's a testament to our contractor base that people are interested in student transportation, and that's why some of these acquisitions are occurring, and that's why people of a vendor partner caliber want to engage with us at NSTA.
Yeah, no, thanks again for that too. And like I said, I just want to, on behalf of NSTA, yourself, all the members, we are very appreciative of our vendor partners, our OEMs. So yeah, without them, I don't think we could probably do what we do, right? So yeah,
Right.
appreciate that. So just this past March, just last month, NSTA, we did our annual Capitol Hill bus in. Went up to the hill and to the lobby on petition, right? For the things that are important to our industry. Uh, Maybe we can just spend a couple minutes on some high level asks that we had this year. One thing that I know I appreciate, I think we probably all did, and we were really focused this year on just two or three things to go up and to speak to our legislators about. Where I think in the past years we went up and we had 5, 7 things, right? And we're trying to put 10
Yeah.
pounds into a 5 pound bag, right? And it was difficult. So I think this year that was probably one of my biggest takeaways is that I didn't feel rushed, going into one of the members' offices and like, I got to fit this in, I got to fit this in. Just those two or three things, and very, very important to our industry. But Curt, if you would maybe take a few minutes, walk our listeners through those asks that we went up. What do we need to continue to do now? Maybe in reaching out to those members. What do we need to do to get a couple of these things across the finish line?
Yeah, no, thanks for the segue, Shane. Yeah, Buckton was spectacular this year. We saw tangible progress on a couple of the key issues. So one was take people, uh, which I think I'm good at, down memory lane again. But talk about the Stop for School Buses Act, which was kind of our original foray into, protecting the children outside the school bus. And we had a great sponsor. Unfortunately, she was killed in a automobile accident, Jackie Walorski, but they had a horrific accident in Rochester, Indiana. She came to us, said, "Hey, what can I do?" And we put together a pretty comprehensive bill that did a number of different things. One of the things that bill was supposed to do was create a public safety campaign, and unfortunately, it didn't take the shape that we thought, it would. So outside of the other things that that bill did, and one of them was study state laws regarding illegal passing of school bus, but then also undertake a survey about driver behavior regarding passing, school buses in general. The one piece we were disappointed in was obviously the public service announcement campaign (PSA). So we just focused our efforts on like, let's get a click it or ticket campaign in front of the motoring public. We got to meet them where they are. They are not, I don't think you can affect behavior like that thinking that people are going to go to a website and download material to read on illegal school bus passing. Just
Not going
not
to
the way it
happen.
works.
Yeah.
So I just think about when I'm driving around, Memorial Day comes to mind. If I'm going to Jersey Shore, whatever, radio ads, click it or ticket.
Mhm.
On the highway signs, click it or ticket. TV ads, click it or ticket.
Mhm.
And it's really increased usage of seatbelts tremendously over the period of time that they had it. And we need something similar at the beginning of school each year. One of the things that we saw in the survey, or people's perception of this, is um, we asked the respondents, why do people pass the stop school bus with a stop bar, extended flashing lights, etc.
Mhm.
And 31% came up and said, and this is their perception, so it wasn't why they did it, it's their perception of why people do it. 31% said they don't care. And to me, that was like a wow moment. Like,
Yeah.
wow, people, that's the perception. Um, and we all know perception in a lot of cases is reality. So
Correct.
you're probably not far off the mark there. The other stuff that came out of the survey is what you would think. People were in a hurry. Like 25% said, "Hey, I'm in a hurry. I'm going to do it," or people said, "I was unaware that I had to," even though there's a stop arm out that has a
Mhm.
stop sign. I was unaware I was supposed to stop. Right.
Right.
So, and I said, well, like that stuff I can understand. I'm not endorsing it, but I can understand somebody's like, I'm in a hurry. I'm going to ignore this law.
Mhm.
I can't understand the don't care part about
Yeah.
that, especially when it revolves around school children
Mhm.
either. So I think the survey, the long-winded way of saying the survey really bolstered our support for the bill on Capitol Hill. And you've done great work because you had an initial conversation with Congressman Pete Stauber up in your state of Minnesota about this. He's a former policeman, and you really engaged with him, and he became the prime sponsor on the Break for Kids Act. So that's HR 2348. And so I want to compliment you on your engagement with, and that's how it works. It's like I go into those offices, and I know what I'm talking about, but I'm also viewed as the quote unquote hired gun. Not as much as the hired gun as Becky Weber, but still
Right.
the
Right.
hired gun. But
Yeah.
when they get a constituent like you in there, man, it takes that conversation to a whole other level. And as you can see with what you did, he responded, which is fantastic. So we're so pleased, thankful to you for your engagement on that. So pleased that Representative Stauber has taken up the mantle on this, and really looking forward to grabbing more co-sponsors. That's what people can do. Write your legislators, members of Congress, get co-sponsors, and really move this forward, because I think it's long overdue. We know that the children are safer
Yeah.
on the school bus than any other method of getting them to school. So that's
Correct.
whether it's biking, walking, parents driving, or the worst option, students driving other students to
Correct.
school. But it's outside the school bus where they're in jeopardy, and that's
Yeah.
what we got to put an end to.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
one thing, and I applaud you for your efforts on that.
Yeah. No, thanks for that, Kurt. Again, and just again, it shows the importance of why we all need to go up to the Hill every year and petition and lobby for our industry. And so, again, just a shout out, and we'll get there a little bit later. Of if you're not a member of NSTA, to me, this is one of the reasons you need to be a member of the NSTA, is to go up in March to DC and make our voices heard. So yeah, again, we thank Congressman Stauber for taking this up. Again, House Bill 2348. Contact your Congress person and ask them to co-sponsor 2348. And then the other one that we talked about up there too was the Driving Forward Act by Congressman Carter. So if you want to take a minute or two, Curt, and maybe explain that one to our listeners as well.
Yeah. So going back to the throes of the COVID-19 pandemic,
No, let's not do
we
that. Let's not go back.
just briefly, Shane,
All right,
just
all right.
briefly, when we were coming out of it, we kind of recognized we were going to have an issue with potentially have an issue with bus drivers. Some who had retired, unfortunately, some passed away during that period of time too. So uh, I would say, that there was an opportunity that I had to connect with the FMCSA administrator. Her name was Mira Josie at the time. And we would engage on a one-to-one basis. So I like had her email and phone number and be able to talk to her. And she set up a meeting. And I just remember at this time everything was at a frenzy. We were kind of going back to school in 2021, and
Yeah.
this is like August and September 2021. Man, I got tired of seeing myself on TV and radio with like all these interviews, and people were
Yeah.
asking me like, "Well, when's the driver shortage going to end?" It was like, like if I knew that, I could
It's not
cure cancer and I'll predict
right.
whoever going to win the World Series, and there'd be a lot of things. But so I said, hey, you know what? This thing had been bouncing around within the confines of NSTA for a while, and that was the fact that we identified the under the hood testing component as the disincentive to get people through the system to drive school buses. And I got a meeting set up with Mira Josie, and she brought senior staff in. So this was like a big deal. So they had the
Mhm.
FMCSA council, they had all their top senior staff people. So we weren't meeting with lower level, kind of like functionaries, like, hey, take this
Right.
meeting, make sure you take copious notes and share them with us.
Mhm.
We were all with the heavy hitters there,
Yeah.
and I started the meeting, and I'll never forget what I said. And I said, hey guys, like you'd have to be under a rock to not know that there's a bus driver shortage. Because like I had done
Yeah.
umpteen thousand interviews, so I know
Right.
this was all over the country. And she agreed with me. She said, he's absolutely right. You'd have to be under a rock to do this. What can we do about it? And we talked about this, and I don't think I'm telling you any secret here, or maybe I'm telling people a secret, but
Mhm.
most of your rank and file bureaucrats are very risk adverse. So when you bring this up to them, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, like it's not
Yeah.
always like what's good for everybody. It's like, oh, how's this going to impact? Am I going to get a lot of phone calls? Am I going to have to
Yeah.
answer a lot of emails?
Right.
So we didn't hear from them for like 2 3 months from FMCSA. And next thing you know, I get an email. It's like, hey, we're going to publish this emergency waiver. Like I don't know. Now that meeting was in September. We're going to
Right.
publish this like in December, January. And I'm like, holy mackerel!
Like, whoa.
Right. So we got 90 days, and then we had to get another 90 days, and I got tired of putting in emergency waiver requests, and I rode
Mhm.
the COVID horse as long as I could.
Right.
So that now we're into the middle of 2022,
Ooh.
and we put in the application for 5 years to make the exemption, and they gave us 2 years. So that recently expired in November. We put in for another. They give us the rest of it. Give us the 3 years, and they're like gave us another 2 years.
Right.
So so now uh, Representative John Carter from Texas jumps in, and he sees his son is a baseball coach down um, in Texas,
Mhm.
and he says, I just want to drive the team to games, but they're making me become essentially a mechanic to do this.
Mechanic. Yeah. Mhm.
So he had that Representative Carter had that connection. Plus, he drove a school bus. We found out in Washington
Right.
previously,
Yeah.
so he had an affinity for student transportation. So and it's like you just never know where these connections are going to come. So he
Right.
dropped in. He dropped in Driving Forward Act to make the under the hood testing exemption permanent. Last Congress, the 118th Congress, and then moved it forward. He came to Boston, spoke. He was really engaging, speaker, and I thank him, for sponsoring it. I think if we make it permanent, we have 13 states who've adopted it. We've seen some success with it. I think if we can get it permanent, we'll get more states to adopt it.
I agree.
Um, and that's the goal. And that was really an easy ask. And I don't know about your meetings, Shane, on that one, but in my meetings, like people were like almost dumbfounded, like, okay, what's the ask here? Like, you just want to
Mhm.
do this? Like, there's nothing more to it. You're not
Yep.
asking for, $10 million to do this or anything else, right?
Right. Yeah.
And and it was like I just found a pretty easy. Both those bills were pretty easy sell for us, and just were both, I think, logical responses to issues that
Yeah.
the student transportation industry were facing.
Yeah. No, thanks for that. Excuse me. And I agree too. The meetings I had with the different senators or Congress folks or their staffers, again on this one, the Driving Forward Act, and I was very purposeful, as I'm sure everybody was as I was explaining to them what this is about and the why, incorporating from the FMCSA, not my words, not my opinion, but from them, that there is no safety implications whatsoever with the adoption of this under the hood waiver or the Driving Forward Act. So even the feds recognize that removing this under the hood inspection, there is no safety implications whatsoever. So I thought that was very important, and weaving that into the conversation again, the end result of it was that, well, why are we not doing this then? And I'm like,
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I do have some. I do have some why we're not doing it, but I won't share that here today. But um, I agree with you that I think if we could make this permanent, if Representative Carter's bill could get across the finish line, we're going to see states adopt this waiver, and it will help. I do believe, as we all do, that it will help with the driver shortage for sure.
Yeah, and I think there's another thing that comes out once in a while too, because and thankfully at NSTA we've established a good relationship with AMVA, which is the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators, and we talked to them extensively before we waded into this water because last thing we want to do is step on someone's toes or create an adversarial relationship on a key partner of ours. Like they're doing CDL modernization, which is going to help all of us. So we don't want to step on their toes. But the one thing they said to us, like, well, we get it, but what you're telling us is not borne out in testing results. And we told them it's not going to be
Mm,
because the people wash out before they even get to a test. So in
right,
other words, they come in and all of a sudden you start them on a training program and you say, hey, by the way, to pass your CDL license test, you're going to have to uh, do this
right.
identification, lift the hood for one, and do this identification of engine components. And all of a sudden you don't see them at the next class.
No, and it's just outdated. I mean, I understand why it was, but it's an outdated portion of the test in today's school bus world. It's really not applicable to a bus route that's 10 miles away from the shop, or if it breaks down, the driver is going to stay inside the bus with the students as they've been instructed. Don't go outside and try to fix and repair the bus on the side of the road. Stay inside, honor the kids. We'll get another bus there and swap things out. We'll get the one towed back to the shop and the mechanics will figure out what's wrong with it. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
just outdated. Yeah, it's outdated. Needs to be adjusted.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's at play, if we were back doing this when they implemented the CDL in 1986, I believe it was, there might have been two tracks. So, and people might not be aware of this, but with FMCSA, we're swept up in all of the rules and regulations, or I shouldn't say all of them, but a majority of them with respect to those things being applicable to motor truck rather than to school bus. And
Yeah,
perhaps if we were around in '86, we would have seen value in creating two separate tracks for licenses,
yeah,
one for school bus and one for long haul trucking.
right.
But we're not there. We are where we are, and that's why we have to take this
Yeah.
step.
And that Curt, you bringing that up reminds me of a conversation. This was many years ago. Tim Walz, who's our current governor here in Minnesota, at one point was our congressman, my congressman down here in Minnesota District 1, Southern Minnesota. And we had breakfast with him once. He was, again, as the congressman. And we were talking about just, again, there was a school bus shortage then, even right back even 15 years ago. It's just now really being spotlighted, I think, because of COVID. But there's always been an issue with getting enough qualified school bus drivers. So anyways, during this breakfast, we were sharing, our thoughts, opinions, insights with all of this. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, you guys are basically just a cog in the wheel. You're in the trucking industry. The school bus world is lumped into the trucking industry, the over the road. And there's nothing I can do to help you. You guys need to get out and be your own industry. And it's true to today. We're stuck in the trucking world. We're stuck in the trucking industry. And whatever rules apply to an over-the-road trucker, this gets passed on to us in the school bus world. And so many of the things, again, are just not applicable to our industry. Yeah. So
Yeah, it's interesting that he identified that, but
yeah,
I agree with that to a point. I mean, this shows that we can do something, by virtue of the under the hood
right.
exemption. We can do something, but he wasn't wrong in terms of like the landscape is set up for long haul trucking.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but no, thanks for that. Again, Curt and I want to remind everybody, the Break for Kids Act, HR 2348, Driving Forward Act, by Representative Carter, HR 2360. Please contact your Congress folks, ask them to co-sponsor both of those bills. Email them, call the number. If anybody's not sure, they can message Curt or I, and we'll get you the right contact information on what to do with that. Awesome. Curt, this has been great. It's been fantastic, very educational. I hope our listeners have had a great time as well. And I thank you for your time as well. And we'll do it again.
Yep. No, appreciate it, Shane. Always good to be with you.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Curt. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Stay up to date with the podcast by following us on social media. Don't forget to subscribe to the Morning Route Podcast YouTube channel.